How Egypt turned the desert into a death trap. Egypt used its surrounding deserts like natural walls. The burning sands stopped enemies before they could reach the Nile, turning the desert itself into a deadly defense. If history is written by the victors, then Egypt's deserts wrote it in bones. At the end, you will know how did Egypt use bows and chariots to dominate. For over 3,000 years, Egypt stood as one of the most secure civilizations on earth, not just because of its mighty pharaohs or grand armies, but because of its greatest ally, the desert. But how? The endless sands that surrounded the Nile Valley weren't just empty wastelands, they were natural fortresses. While other empires crumbled under foreign invasion, Egypt's enemies found themselves swallowed by heat, thirst, and mirages before they ever reached its heart. So the Nile Valley was like a green island surrounded by death. Ancient Egypt began around 3100 BC when Upper and Lower Egypt were united under the first pharaoh, and it developed over the next 3,000 years. The pharaohs seems that they were really powerful. How does it work as a defense for the ancient Egyptians? The deserts were a living landscape, and at numerous points along the desert roads, the ancient Egyptians employed rock art and rock inscriptions to create and mark places. The deserts around Egypt acted as a natural barriers, protecting the Nile Valley from large invading armies. Although nomadic tribes sometimes tried to raid or settle there. In other words, the Nile gave life, the desert gave attitude. Ancient records such as those found on the Karnak temple walls and Herodotus' Histories, Book 2, describe how desert conditions defeated countless invaders. So the desert was Egypt's silent assassin. Desert was a burning shield. The Libyan desert to the west and the eastern desert toward the Red Sea acted as a burning shields. Even the mighty Persians and later the Romans had to rely on narrow routes along the Nile routes. Egyptians controlled with deadly precision. So for ancient superpowers, it was a burden. These vast sands didn't just protect, they preserved. Tombs, temples, and even mummies survived for millennia because the dry air stopped decay, making Egypt the world's time capsule of ancient glory. Egypt has a rich history. If they had any major powerful weapons to strengthen defense, Egyptians built fortresses and outposts along the Nile Delta, the eastern desert, and in Nubia to the south. Egypt's geography also helped it grow and succeed in military campaigns. Geography is a great factor for defense. While they were not major innovators in weapons, Egyptians used bows, arrows, and chariots effectively. With all this, geography did the rest to weaken and defeat their enemies. So while other civilizations fought to build walls, Egypt simply let the desert build them.